Things were rough. I was seeking God. Mornings, middle of the night, hours on my knees, tears, and it felt like nothing was happening. Sometimes it felt like I was just talking to myself. You know that silence. You prayed. You kept praying. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into something you stopped counting, because counting just made it worse. And the silence on the other end wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. And somewhere deep down, a question you didn't want to ask started forming anyway. Is God even hearing me? Is anybody there? Maybe you've been in that place before. Maybe you're there right now. I'm not going to tell you how to get out of the silence, but I will tell you this. He is hearing you. Let me tell you a story. Elijah had just lived the greatest moment of his life. He had stood alone against 450 prophets of Baal. He had called down fire from heaven. He had prayed for rain after 3 years of drought, and then the sky opened up. But the queen sent him a message, "I will kill you." So he ran. There's something about the Bible that always gets me. It doesn't hide the weaknesses of its heroes. Elijah didn't perform faith. He didn't try to look strong. He just lay down under a tree and told God exactly what he was feeling. "I've had enough, Lord. I can't do this anymore. Just take my life." The pressure, the fear, the loneliness, it was all just too much. And what did God say back? Nothing. What happens next is not what you'd expect. God doesn't show up in a vision, doesn't explain anything, doesn't answer Elijah's prayer with words. An angel touches his shoulder and says, "Get up, eat." There's bread next to him, water. That's it. I've thought about this scene a lot. Why the silence? Why not a vision, a word, an explanation? Why just an angel with bread and water? Elijah was asking why. He wanted answers, explanations, something that made sense. And God responded by taking care of him. He didn't understand it, but he needed that food for what was coming. Sometimes what feels like spiritual silence is actually God's plan unfolding behind the scenes. There's a gap between what we can see and what's actually happening. Elijah couldn't see what God was setting up. All he could feel was what he was going through. Exhaustion, silence, and that specific kind of loneliness that comes from giving everything and feeling like it wasn't enough. But God was already moving, not toward the solution Elijah had in mind, towards something Elijah couldn't have even imagined, something so much better. A still small voice on top of a mountain, a successor waiting in a field, the rest Elijah had asked for, not in death, but in glory. The silence wasn't absence, it was preparation. It seems like the bigger the struggle, the deeper the desert, the greater the rescue, the blessing waiting for the one who holds on. Let me be honest with you. I've been there. My dreams fell apart. I was out of work, praying for months into what felt like a wall. Doors closed. The gap between what I believed and what my life looked like getting wider every week. And then, not slowly, not in stages, out of nowhere, a door opened. Not just any door, an incredible one. Something so unlikely, so much bigger than I expected, that it could only have been put together by him, with love. While I was praying and wondering if I was just talking to myself, he was arranging everything, moving people, moving circumstances toward the right outcome at exactly the right time. I remember laughing to myself for months thinking about what had happened, not because it was funny, but because I finally saw that I hadn't been alone, that I hadn't been forgotten, that the Father's care had been there the whole time, that he had heard every prayer, every cry, every tear. I'm not going to tell you the silence ends today. I'm not going to tell you what's waiting on the other side of it. What I can tell you is what Elijah's story tells us, that your story isn't over, and that silence is not the same thing as absence, that the moment you feel most alone is not necessarily the moment God is furthest away. Maybe the Father has already laid out the bread you need to keep going. Maybe it's already right there next to you, and you just haven't seen it yet. The angel didn't come with answers, he came with food. Because what Elijah needed in that moment wasn't an explanation, it was just enough strength to take the next step. And what he found at the end of that road was so much better than anything he could have imagined lying under that tree. If you're in God's silence right now, I'm not going to tell you that you should feel joy in this moment. I just want to ask you to believe that silence is not absence, it's not abandonment, that your waiting is not loneliness, that your story isn't over, that somewhere just beyond what you can see, something is happening, something is being prepared for you. Get up, eat. This journey isn't over yet. If you know someone going through this kind of silence right now, share this with them. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord.